When my memory came back 19 years later, I had this flashback of how I'm sitting in that car in the passenger seat. And as soon as I ejected from that Corvette, I remember calling out, "Oh my God, help me." And at that moment, my soul flew out of my body and went with the angel to heaven. I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi, very religious household. My mother was Lutheran and my dad was Southern Baptist, so we got a daily dose each Sunday and throughout the week of church activities and church theology. Very religious, so lots of rules with Christianity and religion. And then I also got a lot of rules because my dad was military. He had gone to the Air Force Academy, wanted one of his children to go. There were 4 siblings in my family, and I was the one that volunteered to go. I'm very tall, very thin, wanted to be a ballerina is what I wanted to be. I loved the ballet, also, the arts in general. So going into the science arena at the Air Force Academy really didn't align with who I was. The accident happened actually when I was 19 years old. So I was starting my second year at the Air Force Academy. So gotten through the worst part of it. The first year at any of these academies are horrific. I mean, you're hazed and it's just terrible. There's a lot of physical abuse, mental abuse, unfortunately sexual abuse that goes on. And I knew the day that I hit boot camp, the first day, that my soul was in the wrong place. But in my family, you were not allowed to quit. Failure is not an option, okay? When you sign up for something, especially as prestigious as going into one of these service academies, there is no way I could have quit without feeling the shame and embarrassment and being defined as a loser, that I couldn't cut it. I couldn't deal with that label and that the infamy that would always live with me, that I couldn't cut it. So I stayed there, even though I was not happy, even though I was struggling, even though I lived in fear every single day. I stuck it out. So the beginning of the sophomore year, we had a big squadron event and I was getting a ride back. I was the last person, along with the senior, to leave the event, and I got a ride back with him. And he wanted to stop at a bar. Now you have to remember, my dad banned alcohol in our household because my grandfather was an alcoholic, so no alcohol in our house. And his 3 rules for me going off to college was no drinking, no smoking, and no dating upper cadets, class cadets. Now, come on, that's what you go to college for, right? To start breaking some rules, to have some alcohol, maybe smoke. And here I am. I mean, I hadn't even been on a date. Think about that. I have not been on a date, and now I'm going to school with 4,000 guys, and he tells me not to date any of them. Okay, so his expectations clearly are off the chart, but I'm trying to fulfill them. So I said, okay, but we got to be back by 7:35. So the senior guy says, okay, well, we'll just have a couple of drinks. And then this is what I remembered 19 years later. The only thing that I remembered was getting in the car with him after we left the bar, and the bartender did ask him, "Are you okay to drive?" And he said, yes. Then I go blank. I wake up the next morning in the intensive care unit at Penrose Community Hospital in Colorado Springs. So there's at least a 12-hour gap where I have no memory. The only thing that I later remembered was this clear, bright light. And I think it's hard to even describe, but it's the most common characteristic of the NDEs that we experience, is going into this brilliant white light that kind of flooded me from all sides. And it just felt like a stream of light cocooning me, kind of wrapping me, every part of me in its being, like I was in a chrysalis, something like that, with soothing waves. It was so amazing. It really is hard to put words to it, but it was love and it was bliss. And I had no fear, nothing in the negative emotions at all. And what I later learned was that when I had left my body, when the car hit this boulder, I later learned, I was in a 1965 Corvette. Here's a picture of it for you guys, if you can see it. I was a passenger. That is the passenger side right there. And you can see it's just absolutely smashed. From the very beginning of my NDE, I could clearly remember that white light, like I said, when my body flew from the Corvette. But on the other side of death, when I left my body, God had been all around me. God was in me, God was me, and I was God. So, in essence, God was the presence and fullness and oneness, and most of all was God, this pure, think about it, no strings attached, open arm, God, creator, whatever you want to call it, source. And that is what I experienced. It's like I was an astronaut in outer space filled with awe and wonder. Now, it took me a while to even believe that, because I thought at first the white light that I was seeing, this indescribable brilliance of light, was the operating room lights. So I asked my surgeon, I said, did I become awake and notice the operating room lights? And she said, absolutely not, Nicole. She said, what happened to you was some divine interference that brought you back. And she is amazing. My thoracic surgeon, she was the first woman, female medical student at Jefferson College. So she's a maverick for women, a champion for women in her whole career. And she said, I didn't believe in NDEs until you came along, because it happened to you 3 times. Another time on the operating room, and another time when your lungs filled up with fluid, that we lost you. And it wasn't anything I did. It was some divine being that brought you back. And so she is convinced of NDEs as well now. So that was what kind of sets the stage for it. When my memory came back 19 years later, I mean, that's a big gap in time. Okay, I was 19 when the crash happened, and now 19 years later, I've moved on with my life, and I am going to work at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I go to Starbucks, get my regular latte, and then all of a sudden, you guys, I have this flashback of how I'm sitting in that car in the passenger seat, and I could never understand the injuries I incurred in that crash, which was my left foot was amputated. I cut up all the inside of my thighs. I broke my wrist. I broke my pelvis on both sides. I had massive lacerations. I mean, it was bad. So much so that I was declared dead at the scene. And the reason I know that is because the first responder, who I credit as one of my angels, because I believe in angels and I believe they come in many different forms. But John Hartling arrived on the scene. They had already covered me up. Some bystanders saw me. They covered me up. And it took him, he said, anywhere from 10 to 13 minutes to get to me. So that's how long they estimated I was dead. He took the blanket off, couldn't get any vitals on me. Started doing something called a sternal knuckle press, where it's a healthcare technique where you try to elicit pain in the body. And when he started doing that, my right eye, the pupil, that's the only sign of life he could get, it flinched. Now, you guys think about that saying, what is it? Our eyes are the window to our soul. You heard that one? Okay, no joke. At that moment, my soul, which had flown out of my body when I went through the windshield of the car, came back in through my eye, and my heart started beating it again. And they got a blood pressure on me at that moment of 60 over 0. Now, normal is 120 over 80. So you can still see I'm in life and death at that point. So they start doing CPR on me, get me in the bus, and get me to the nearest community hospital, which was not a trauma-based hospital, but they couldn't care. It was like, let's just get her somewhere so she lives. So that is what he told me later, 10 weeks after the crash, when he came to my hospital room to check on me, which was amazing that a paramedic would do that. And I stayed in touch with him this entire 42 years. And we developed quite a wonderful relationship. And I talk about him in the book a lot, because he is an angel and he can completely validate everything that happened at the scene of the accident. So that kind of sets the stage. And when my memory came back 19 years later, You guys, I knew nothing about something called repressed memories. Okay, that was something new for me. And when I started remembering like how I was sitting in the car and it was like a movie was playing out, I started to remember everything. I didn't go to work. I went directly to my chiropractor, my body healed, and I said, I am freaking out. I'm starting to remember the crash. And he's like, Nicole, calm down. Your body is finally ready to remember it. And I'm like, why now? Why 19 years later? And he said, because you're finally feeling safe enough in your body to let it come up and come out. And at that point, I had the resources to help me process the trauma so I could actually let my body feel the emotions and move through it without basically going to the loony bin house. And what I now know is there's also spirit guides on the other side that we have that are willing to help us. And my guides had said, you got to get this message out there about not fearing death, Nicole. It's been 19 years. It's time you remembered. And so we're going to help give you a little push here to remember it. And I remembered the whole thing until I got to the ICU, going to the other side, what happened on the other side, and coming back. So it's absolutely incredible what the body can do and that it holds on to this trauma and memory until you are ready and able to process it. I remembered coming down, and as soon as I ejected from that Corvette, I went butt up through the windshield. When I got into the air, I froze, and I remember calling out, "Oh my God, help me." And at that moment, my soul flew out of my body and went with the angel to heaven, the other side, whatever you want to call it. There are many dimensions up there. So it went off, and I knew at that point that I was going to die. I knew my physical body was going to hit the ground and I was going to die, which it did. So I never experienced any pain in terms of the trauma of the car wreck. And I want to tell everyone out there, if you have a loved one or someone that you knew that was in a very traumatic accident or situation where they passed, and you're worried that they passed in a lot of pain, almost 99.9% of the time, their soul leaves their body before the physical impact of the pain actually happens. So they feel no pain whatsoever. And I really, really want to assure you that that's the case. Okay. So my soul goes over to the other side, and I hear, now you got to remember, on the other side, we don't have these physical bodies. Okay. So our eyes are not like our eyes here. Our eyes can see about 40 degrees. On the other side, your eyes can see 360 and into the future and into the past all at the same time. Okay. It's wild. But you can, and you can think about the 7 top hits of music that you love and combining all of those to a vibration that's even higher, that you would go absolutely nuts if you heard it all. That's kind of what the music is like over there. But I heard 2 beings that were angels next to me. Now, they're not speaking English, okay? You're understanding them through something called telepathy and vibration. So what I heard was they were having a conversation that they wanted me to hear, that we here on earth have to ask for their help. They want to help us. They're eager to help us. But since we have something called free will on this planet, we have a choice. They are not going to interfere unless it's an absolute life or death situation. Then they can interfere. But other than that, we have to ask them for help. So I have learned to have a relationship with my angels. We all have at least one guardian angel and or birth angel, whichever you want to call it. But we come in with that birth angel, and it will stay with us until we die. And they're here to protect us. And that's why I didn't die. It's because it was not my time. And when I was on the other side, those angels were saying, please ask us for help. So you guys, even today, I asked for a parking space the other day, and dadgummit, that's a southern term, dadgummit, it showed up. They do not fail. So ask them, for these things, and let them give you the evidence that they are there and they're listening to you. Now, I do believe in prayer. Prayer is focused energy, but I also pray for the highest and greatest good for something, because I don't know what that is for that person or that situation. I may think they need to live, but they may be ready to go, so I've altered and quit praying for how I think something needs to turn out, instead leaving it to this greater divine being that is in charge and created everything. The other thing was the being that took me to the other side. The angel was my guardian angel, birth angel. And I did see my grandfather on the other side. A lot of NDEs will talk about they see relatives or deceased loved ones on this other side. And this didn't happen to me until much, much later. But my grandfather, actually, when I was writing the book, You Are Deathless, which came out a couple of years ago about my story, I smelled cigar smoke as I was writing one day, and I was like, nobody in my house smokes. And then I heard this, Nicole, and I turned, and it was like, he's like, this is your grandfather on your father's side. And I'm here to tell you that I could see what was going on at the Air Force Academy, all the abuse that you were in, all the fear that you were in, that you were not in the right place, that you wanted to quit but couldn't. And the only way to, quote, save face of getting out of the academy was, unfortunately, for this crash to happen. Because as a result of that, I was honorably discharged from the U.S. military, and I am now, over the years, have become 100% disabled veteran due to the extent of my injuries. So my father could not say anything to me about failing out or anything like that, because I was medically discharged. What are you going to say to that? It's kind of like somebody gets sick and that's their reason they can't participate in something, right? Well, okay, that's your, it's not a get out of jail card, but it's the reason why you can't complete something. So that was cool for my granddad to have appeared, and he looked like he did in the 30s. He died when he was 58, which was interesting because he was an alcoholic. And that doesn't transfer when you go to the other side, what you did here. You will have a life review, but that's not what you did here, does not go up there and stay with you and you keep talking about it. But the guy that was driving the car turned out to be an alcoholic as well, which was interesting. The other thing on the other side was I was told I was going to go back. And a lot of people that have NDEs are given a choice of whether or not they want to go back. I did not have a choice. I was told by my angel that I was going back and that my mission was to tell other people not to be afraid of death. I'm like, that's a pretty big mission. Death is a pretty big subject. And in America, especially, we are a culture of death denial. We do not think it's going to happen to us. And we certainly don't want to talk to others about it. And we push it off. We push elderly people off to these assisted living and nursing homes so we don't have to see them and deal with them and go through the process of death and dying. And what I want people to understand is we have to change the narrative around death in this country. It needs to be included earlier to teach children about death in an age-appropriate way. But it's happening, okay? Look at all the mass shootings that happen with schools, okay? Look at the little campers that just died at Mystic Lake. I mean, these are 8-year-olds. You got to have the language, and you have to start letting people know that it's a part of life. But it's not filled with doom and gloom and depression. Yes, I understand as humans that the human part of us has to deal with the emotions, the grief, the devastation, the suffering, the pain, the loss, but in the bigger cosmic context of life and death, it's benevolence. And we need to understand that and realize that death is a transition back to where we came from, and we need to prepare for that transition. And that, honestly, on the other side, death is about love and light and this sense that our soul is eternal. We go on. Okay, so you can find me on my website, www.nicolekerr.com. I have a contact page there, and I've also written a book called You Are Deathless. And I want to just see, you see my credentials up there? Okay, that's a master's in public health, registered dietitian nutrition, because one thing I didn't talk about, but what helped is I'm a proponent for mental health because I developed an eating disorder because my parents did not get me help. The mental health help to deal with trauma. And going through an NDE is traumatic. And I really want people to understand that because it flips your world upside down. Okay. And then this one here, BTDT, anybody got an idea what that one is? Okay, been there, done that. That is a made up credential. Okay. You can put it on your resume if you have an experience that doesn't have, like, there's no school that you go to for an NDE and the experience there. Okay. This is all experiential. So that is what, when people say, well, what makes you qualified to do it? I said, I've been there and I've done that. And this is my experience. And it happens to go along with 90% of the other people that have had these experiences too. We all come away with the same lesson. The main theme being that on the other side, it's love and oneness, this collective consciousness of love.